In the modern world, the Stoic does not wait for circumstances to be perfect. He does not wait for distraction to disappear or for technology to become gentler. He begins where he is, with what he has, using the tools available while maintaining his inner calm and reason. Stoicism is applied philosophy. It is not theory, it is action. It is the art of living well, of living intentionally, in a world designed to scatter the mind and inflame the passions. One of the first practical applications is mastery over attention. In an age where every device, app, and notification competes for consciousness, the ability to focus becomes revolutionary. Modern Stoicism teaches that you must choose what occupies your mind. Every thought, image, or piece of information is not neutral. It shapes your perception, your habits, and ultimately, your character. To be a Stoic today is to practice what ancient Stoics practiced in their time: deliberate attention, careful observation, and purposeful engagement. Take social media, for example. It promises connection, community, and knowledge, yet it often delivers distraction, comparison, and superficiality. The modern Stoic does not reject technology, but uses it intentionally. He sets boundaries, limiting time spent scrolling, curating content that informs rather than inflames, interacting only when it aligns with reason and virtue. He asks, does this post, this comment, this video serve wisdom? Does it contribute to my growth? Or does it scatter my mind and disturb my peace? He does not allow the endless stream of notifications to dictate his mood or attention. He takes control, not in anger or resistance, but with quiet, deliberate choice. Beyond attention, Stoicism in the modern world applies to the management of emotions. Ancient Stoics recognized that emotions are not to be eliminated, but to be understood and directed. Anger, fear, desire, anxiety, all arise naturally, but they need not control action. Modern life tests this principle constantly. A colleague undermines you, a driver cuts you off, a friend criticizes you publicly, a social media post provokes outrage. These situations are inevitable. The Stoic responds, not impulsively, but with observation. He notices the stirrings of anger, recognizes the impulse to retaliate, and pauses. He asks, is this within my control? Will my reaction serve virtue or only the ego? Will it bring peace or further disturbance? This pause is a powerful tool. It allows reason to assert itself over impulse, ensuring that action is guided by principle rather than reaction. Similarly, fear and anxiety in the modern world often arise from uncertainty, job instability, health concerns, global crises, or financial pressures. The Stoic responds by distinguishing what can and cannot be controlled. We cannot control the stock market, natural disasters, or the actions of others, but we can control our response, our preparation, and our mindset. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that we are shaped not by events themselves, but by the way we perceive and interpret them. Modern Stoicism teaches the same. Cultivate an internal fortress. Respond with reason. Accept what cannot be changed. Work diligently on what can. This duality, acceptance and action, is the essence of practical Stoicism. Work itself is a domain where Stoicism becomes essential. Modern careers demand constant output, constant competition, and constant adaptation. Stress, overwork, and burnout are pervasive. The Stoic approaches work as a duty, not a source of ego validation. Every task, no matter how small, is performed with attention, skill, and integrity. Recognition is secondary to virtue. Success is measured not by external accolades, but by the alignment of action with principle. A Stoic may fail in the eyes of the world and still be unshaken, because he measures himself by his own adherence to reason, diligence, and moral purpose, not by transient social measures. Stoicism also transforms relationships in the modern world. In an era of instant gratification, shallow connections, and constant distraction, the Stoic cultivates depth. He practices empathy without attachment, care without dependency. He engages fully in conversation and collaboration, but does not allow others' moods, opinions, or actions to destabilize his inner peace. Ancient Stoics wrote of the interconnectedness of humanity, that we are all parts of the same whole. Modern Stoicism applies this in practical terms. Treat others with justice, kindness, and honesty, but recognize that you cannot control how they think, feel, or act. Your duty is to virtue, not to their approval. Even in love, this principle holds. Romantic relationships today are often tested by insecurity, expectation, and attachment to external outcomes. The Stoic approaches love not as possession, but as partnership and mutual growth. He appreciates deeply, expresses gratitude, and contributes with integrity, yet understands that he cannot force loyalty, affection, or admiration. Attachment to outcomes is replaced by focus on action and character. The modern Stoic does not suffer unnecessarily from fear of loss or judgment. He acts rightly and lets the world respond. Daily routines become a battlefield and a sanctuary simultaneously. In modern life, time is fragmented by meetings, messages, errands, and obligations. The Stoic creates structure, deliberately cultivating habits that strengthen mind, body, and character. Meditation, journaling, exercise, deliberate reflection. These are not optional, but essential practices. They anchor the individual amidst chaos. They provide clarity. They reinforce the awareness that life is fleeting and that each moment is an opportunity to live with virtue. The Stoic also engages in mental rehearsal. Ancient Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining loss, hardship, or misfortune, not to invite suffering, but to prepare the mind. Today, this practice equips us to handle rejection, failure, and disappointment with equanimity. Before facing a difficult conversation, a challenging project, or an unexpected crisis, the Stoic visualizes possible outcomes, acknowledges them, and rehearses rational and virtuous responses. By doing so, he reduces fear, increases readiness, and maintains control over reactions. The modern world is also a world of excess. Excess of food, entertainment, stimulation, and comfort. The Stoic teaches moderation, not deprivation. The Stoic consumes mindfully, recognizing the transient nature of pleasure. He does not deny enjoyment, but he does not let it dominate or define him. He exercises restraint, understanding that freedom is found not in indulgence, but in mastery over desire. By reducing dependency on external gratification, he strengthens the mind, cultivates patience, and discovers contentment independent of circumstance. Even the perception of failure is transformed. In modern society, mistakes are amplified by social media, public opinion, and self-expectation. The Stoic reframes failure as information, as a teacher, as an opportunity to exercise resilience. Every setback is met with reflection. What is within my control here? What can I learn? How can I act better next time? In this way, the Stoic converts obstacles into progress and adversity into virtue. In practical terms, modern Stoicism can be applied through small, consistent actions. Begin by auditing your attention. Notice what captures your mind each day.
Life in the modern world is unpredictable, often harsh, and frequently beyond our control. Despite the comforts and conveniences technology provides, the human experience remains full of uncertainty. Economic fluctuations, political instability, climate crises, personal loss, illness, and the relentless pace of social and professional demands create a landscape that can feel overwhelming. To navigate this world successfully, to maintain inner peace, to live with purpose and virtue, the modern Stoic turns to the ancient principles that have guided thinkers, leaders, and ordinary people for thousands of years. The Stoic understands that life is not meant to be easy, but that mastery of the self allows a person to endure, adapt, and thrive regardless of circumstance. At the heart of Stoic practice is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. This simple yet profound insight is more relevant now than ever. In modern life, we are constantly bombarded by forces we cannot influence. The opinions of others, the behavior of colleagues, the whims of the market, the unexpected twists of health, the chaos of the world stage. Yet despite these uncertainties, we can control our own thoughts, our attitudes, our choices, and our responses. The modern Stoic focuses energy and attention on these internal domains, understanding that true freedom lies not in altering the external world, but in mastering the internal one. Adversity is inevitable. No amount of planning, skill, or foresight can shield a person from challenges. In fact, adversity is a natural and necessary part of life. The Stoic sees difficulty not as a punishment, but as an opportunity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Modern life presents its own impediments: career setbacks, financial instability, failed relationships, illness, social injustice. Yet the principle remains unchanged. Every obstacle contains within it the seed of growth. Every challenge tests character and sharpens resilience. The Stoic embraces difficulty as a teacher. He observes, he reflects, and he acts with wisdom and composure, turning apparent misfortune into a crucible for self-mastery. Consider stress, a constant companion in modern life. Stress arises when we cling to outcomes, fear loss, or attempt to control what cannot be controlled. The Stoic approach to stress is radical in its simplicity. Instead of resisting the inevitable, the Stoic accepts reality as it is. He asks, "What is within my power here? How can I act with virtue? What must I accept?" By distinguishing between controllable actions and uncontrollable events, stress transforms from a paralyzing force into a guide. It illuminates where attention is required and where acceptance is necessary. The modern Stoic does not wish for life to be easy. He wishes to be strong, adaptable, and wise enough to endure life as it is. Resilience in the modern world is cultivated through daily practice. Just as a muscle grows stronger through resistance, the mind grows stronger through intentional exposure to difficulty and reflection on impermanence. Ancient Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining loss, hardship, or suffering, not to invite misfortune, but to prepare the mind for the inevitable challenges of life. In contemporary terms, this might mean reflecting on the impermanence of relationships, the fragility of health, or the unpredictability of career success. By rehearsing these scenarios mentally, the modern Stoic reduces fear, strengthens equanimity, and approaches challenges with clarity and composure. Adversity also teaches perspective. Modern life encourages immediacy, comparison, and the amplification of minor setbacks. A delayed response, a lost opportunity, a brief failure can feel catastrophic. Yet the Stoic reminds himself of the vast scale of existence and the brevity of life. He recognizes that most events are fleeting, that most problems will fade with time, and that the ultimate measure of a person is not the absence of difficulty, but the quality of response. Perspective tempers emotional reaction. It diminishes the exaggerated importance of trivial setbacks and allows the mind to focus on what truly matters. The modern Stoic also cultivates mental clarity through reflection and journaling. Ancient Stoics often wrote their thoughts as a form of self-examination. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations are essentially a diary of reflection, an ongoing conversation with oneself about virtue, reason, and purpose. In contemporary life, the practice is no less valuable. Daily reflection, even for a few minutes, provides a space to evaluate actions, assess emotional responses, and align behavior with principle. Through reflection, the Stoic identifies patterns of weakness, recognizes moments of strength, and charts a course towards self-improvement. Journaling is not simply recording events, it is a deliberate practice of self-mastery. Adversity also tests relationships. Modern social networks, both digital and physical, can amplify conflict, misunderstanding, and emotional turbulence. Friends, family, colleagues, and strangers may act in ways that provoke anger or resentment. The Stoic response is deliberate and principled. He recognizes that the actions of others are outside his control, but his response is fully within his domain. He acts with justice, patience, and wisdom, avoiding impulsive reactions that compromise character. In doing so, he maintains integrity while navigating the complexities of human interaction. The modern world often equates success with wealth, status, and recognition. Stoicism challenges this equation. True success is measured by virtue, by adherence to reason, courage, justice, and self-discipline. External accolades may come and go, but the cultivation of character endures. A person may achieve fame, fortune, or influence, yet remain internally chaotic, anxious, or morally compromised. Conversely, one may live humbly, face adversity, and remain unshaken, grounded in virtue. In this sense, Stoicism offers not only a shield against misfortune, but also a compass for authentic achievement. Failure, an unavoidable aspect of modern life, is reframed by Stoicism. Mistakes, setbacks, and rejection are not personal indictments, but opportunities for reflection and growth. A failed project, a lost job, or a rejected proposal is evaluated not with self-pity, but with reasoned inquiry. What can I learn? How can I improve? What actions remain within my control? By embracing this perspective, the modern Stoic transforms failure into a teacher, disappointment into insight, and adversity into progress. Stoicism also offers strategies for enduring uncertainty, a constant feature of contemporary existence. In a rapidly changing economy, shifting political landscapes, and unpredictable global events, anxiety about the future is natural. Yet the Stoic's response is grounded. He focuses on preparation, skill building, and principled action, while accepting that outcomes cannot be guaranteed. Worry is replaced by deliberate action. Fear is replaced by reason. Obsession with control is replaced by acceptance. In this way, uncertainty becomes not a source of despair, but a domain in which the Stoic can exercise patience, prudence, and resilience. Modern Stoicism extends to the use of time. Time is fleeting, and modern life often erodes it through endless distraction and trivial engagement. The Stoic treats time as precious, not disposable. He prioritizes activities that strengthen mind, body, and character. He limits engagement with trivialities. He cultivates moments of solitude, reflection, and purposeful action. Every day becomes an opportunity to exercise virtue, learn, and grow. Time once squandered is reclaimed through deliberate attention and disciplined habit. Even our own mortality becomes a guide. Death,
Daily life is the arena in which philosophy becomes practice. The modern world overwhelms with endless tasks, responsibilities, and distractions. Yet it is in the ordinary, repeated moments of each day that the Stoic cultivates character, reason, and virtue. Stoicism is not only about grand crises, rare adversity, or extraordinary achievements. It is about how one rises, moves, and acts each day. Every morning, every decision, every action is an opportunity to exercise self-discipline, to align behavior with principle, and to live intentionally. The Stoic understands that habits are the architecture of character. What we repeatedly do defines us far more than what we aspire to or imagine. In the contemporary world, routines are often disrupted by technology, work, and social demands. Notifications arrive before consciousness fully awakens. Emails, messages, and alerts demand immediate attention, fragmenting focus before the day begins. The Stoic begins not with the demands of the world, but with deliberate attention to the self. A morning ritual, simple, consistent, and intentional, anchors the mind. Meditation, reflection, journaling, and controlled breathing cultivate clarity. These practices are not indulgent, they are preparatory. They strengthen the mind, fortify the spirit, and establish a framework within which the day can be navigated with reason rather than impulse. Habits of physical discipline are equally central. The modern Stoic understands that the body and mind are intertwined. Regular exercise, adequate sleep, and mindful nutrition are not mere conveniences or aesthetic concerns. They are essential tools for maintaining clarity, endurance, and resilience. Exercise, in particular, is both a metaphor and a practice of Stoicism. The strain, the discipline, the discomfort of training mirror life itself. Enduring the temporary discomfort of the body cultivates strength of mind and fortitude of spirit. Physical self-discipline reinforces mental self-discipline, creating a holistic framework for resilience in daily life. The modern Stoic structures the day around deliberate focus. Task management is approached with intention rather than reaction. Priorities are established according to principle and long-term value rather than urgency or external pressure. Time is treated as finite and precious. It is neither squandered on triviality nor surrendered to distraction. In work, this means focusing fully on tasks at hand, avoiding multitasking, and completing assignments with attention and diligence. In personal life, it means engaging fully with family, friends, or self-reflection, rather than fragmenting presence across multiple obligations simultaneously. The Stoic protects attention as the most vital asset, recognizing that mastery over one's focus is the foundation of effective action. Procrastination is a common challenge in modern life, fueled by endless distraction, comfort, and avoidance of discomfort. The Stoic confronts procrastination directly, recognizing it as an obstacle to virtue and personal growth. Action is prioritized over idle contemplation. Difficult tasks are not avoided because they are unpleasant. They are embraced because they offer an opportunity to exercise discipline, courage, and perseverance. Every moment of deliberate action, no matter how small, reinforces self-mastery. The modern Stoic approaches even mundane responsibilities, cleaning, organizing, scheduling, as exercises in presence, attention, and intentionality. Equally important is the management of mental clutter. In a world saturated with information, opinions, and obligations, the mind becomes easily overwhelmed. The Stoic practices reflection, journaling, and meditation as a means to process thoughts, clarify priorities, and maintain alignment with principle. Daily journaling, in particular, is a tool for self-examination. Recording actions, decisions, and emotional responses allows for evaluation, correction, and growth. Through reflection, one identifies patterns of weakness, recognizes moments of virtue, and cultivates deliberate improvement. This ongoing self-dialogue reinforces awareness and strengthens character over time. Stoicism in daily life also involves the deliberate cultivation of patience and temperance. Modern culture encourages immediacy, gratification, and excess. Meals are hurried, entertainment is consumed endlessly, and comfort is pursued relentlessly. The Stoic resists these impulses, exercising moderation in all things. Eating slowly, practicing restraint in consumption, limiting exposure to unnecessary entertainment, and avoiding overindulgence in pleasure are deliberate acts that strengthen discipline and reduce dependency on external stimuli. Through these small, repeated practices, the mind learns to endure, the will strengthens, and freedom from compulsion is cultivated. Time management is approached as an ethical practice. The modern Stoic evaluates how each activity aligns with purpose, virtue, and long-term value. Idle scrolling, gossip, and trivial distractions are minimized. Work, learning, exercise, reflection, and meaningful interaction are prioritized. Even small routines, waking early, planning the day, or preparing the mind for challenges are exercises in alignment with principle. The day, viewed as a series of deliberate choices, becomes a canvas for practicing self-discipline and cultivating virtue. A critical component of Stoicism in daily routines is the deliberate practice of resilience to discomfort. Modern life often seeks to avoid discomfort through entertainment, social distraction, or physical comfort. The Stoic, however, deliberately exposes himself to manageable challenges. Cold showers, fasting, extended focus, or physical exertion. These exercises are not intended as punishment, but as preparation. They condition the mind to endure discomfort without complaint, to separate desire from action, and to cultivate resilience that carries over into unpredictable circumstances. In this way, small daily acts of discipline translate into readiness for life's larger challenges. Self-reflection extends into emotional regulation throughout the day. The modern Stoic observes thoughts and reactions in real time. Minor frustrations, irritations, or desires are recognized and examined without immediate reaction. Questions are asked, is this within my control? Will reacting serve virtue or habit? Am I responding to reason or impulse? This constant self-observation strengthens emotional intelligence, allowing the Stoic to navigate social, professional, and personal interactions with equanimity and wisdom. The repeated practice of observation, assessment, and deliberate response cultivates an inner calm that persists regardless of external circumstances. Deliberate planning and prioritization are also key to daily practice. The Stoic approaches each day with intention, Tasks are not merely completed, they are assessed for significance, alignment with purpose, and potential for growth. By distinguishing between trivial and essential actions, the Stoic preserves energy for what matters most. This approach reduces stress, enhances effectiveness, and fosters the habit of purposeful action. Even routine chores, when approached with awareness and deliberate focus, become exercises in presence, attention, and intentionality. Gratitude is another cornerstone of modern Stoicism in daily life. While the world encourages envy, comparison, and dissatisfaction, the Stoic cultivates appreciation for what is present. Gratitude is expressed not superficially, but through conscious acknowledgement of health, relationships, abilities, opportunities, and time. This practice shifts perspective from scarcity and desire towards abundance and presence. It reinforces contentment, reduces anxiety, and anchors the mind in reality rather than in imagined deficiency. Gratitude transforms routine life into a space of reflection, humility, and fulfillment. The integration of study, learning, and reflection is equally important. The modern Stoic treats each day as an opportunity to expand understanding and deepen wisdom. Reading, listening, or observing with intention is part of the daily practice, but always with discernment. Does the input enhance reason, virtue, and understanding, or does it scatter attention and inflame emotion? Knowledge is pursued not for ego or status, but as a tool to inform action, strengthen character, and deepen understanding of the human condition. Learning becomes an ethical practice, reinforcing self-discipline, humility, and perspective. Finally, daily life is approached as an opportunity to practice virtue consistently. Courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom are exercised not only in extraordinary circumstances, but in the ordinary choices of each day. How one speaks, how one acts, how one responds to frustration, how one treats others, and how one manages time and attention. Every interaction, task, and decision becomes a microcosm for philosophical practice. By repeatedly acting with intention and principle, the modern Stoic cultivates character, reinforces resilience, and integrates philosophy into lived experience. The power of routine lies not in rigidity, but in intentionality. Modern life is fluid and unpredictable, yet the disciplined mind retains a framework of practice. Daily routines provide structure, clarity, and a training ground for virtue. They strengthen the mind, reinforce moral habits, and ensure that life is navigated.
Modern life is a constant assault on the mind. Endless notifications, unrelenting deadlines, social pressures, political turmoil, and global uncertainty create a perpetual state of mental agitation. Stress and anxiety have become endemic, almost normalized as companions in daily life. Yet the Stoic teaches that the mind, while subject to challenge, is ultimately within our control. External circumstances may provoke emotion, but they cannot dictate the state of the soul unless consent is given. Stress, anxiety, and mental turbulence are signals, not masters. They are information, not determinants. The Stoic approaches the modern landscape of mental health with awareness, discipline, and deliberate practice. At the heart of Stoic mental health is the principle of control. Epictetus reminds us that some things are up to us, and some things are not. Thoughts, judgments, attitudes, and actions are within the realm of control. Outcomes, opinions of others, the flow of events, and external conditions are not. Stress and anxiety often arise when this boundary is blurred, when attention is surrendered to uncontrollable factors, or when desire seeks outcomes beyond influence. Modern Stoicism restores clarity. Focus on what is controllable, act with reason and virtue, and accept the uncontrollable with equanimity. By reinforcing this boundary, the mind finds freedom, even amidst chaos. The modern Stoic recognizes that anxiety often stems from anticipation, imagining worst-case scenarios, fearing loss, or obsessing over uncertainty. The practice of mindfulness and deliberate reflection transforms this anticipation into preparation. Through journaling, meditation, and conscious assessment of risks, the Stoic converts imagined fears into actionable insight. He asks, "What is within my control? What can I prepare for? What must I accept?" By distinguishing between actionable preparation and wasted worry, anxiety diminishes, replaced by clarity, readiness, and reasoned confidence. Stress is also mitigated by reframing perception. The modern world amplifies the significance of minor setbacks, miscommunication, or temporary inconvenience. The Stoic, however, observes the impermanence of events, the scale of existence, and the fleeting nature of difficulty. A delayed project, a harsh email, or an unkind remark is measured against reason and perspective. By placing events in context, the mind avoids exaggeration, diminishes emotional overreaction, and preserves equilibrium. The ability to perceive objectively, to see events as they are, not as they are imagined or feared to be, is central to Stoic mental resilience. Modern life is filled with constant decision-making, and indecision often fuels stress. From career choices to social commitments, financial planning, and daily responsibilities, the modern individual navigates a sea of options. The Stoic approaches decision-making methodically, gather information, assess values, prioritize virtue and principle, and act deliberately. Action replaces procrastination, reason replaces impulsivity, and clarity replaces confusion. By cultivating decisiveness grounded in principle, the Stoic reduces mental friction and increases psychological stability. The modern Stoic also practices emotional regulation. Emotional turbulence, anger, frustration, jealousy, or fear, is natural, but unchecked emotion disrupts mental health. The Stoic observes emotion as data rather than a directive. He identifies the impulse, examines its source, and chooses a response aligned with reason. Anger at a colleague, fear of failure, or envy of a peer is noted, analyzed, and addressed without surrendering control. Through repeated practice, emotional responses become measured and deliberate, enhancing resilience, stability, and the capacity to act effectively under pressure. Stress and anxiety are also mitigated by deliberate routines and structure. Modern life fragments attention and erode focus, amplifying mental strain. The Stoic establishes daily patterns, focused work periods, reflection, meditation, exercise, and meaningful engagement. These structures create predictability, reduce cognitive load, and anchor the mind amidst external chaos. Habits, once established, act as stabilizing forces, guiding attention and action automatically toward constructive activity rather than reactive impulse. In this way, routine itself becomes a buffer against mental turbulence. Another key practice is negative visualization, a technique often misunderstood. Ancient Stoics imagined loss, failure, or hardship, not to invite despair, but to prepare the mind. The modern Stoic applies this to mental health by contemplating adversity, setbacks, or temporary discomfort in a controlled, reflective manner. By rehearsing challenges mentally, one reduces the shock and anxiety when real obstacles arise. This practice strengthens resilience, reduces fear of the unknown, and trains the mind to respond with calm, reasoned action rather than panic or avoidance. Social media and modern connectivity present unique challenges to mental health. The Stoic navigates these forces with intentional limitation and awareness. Endless scrolling, comparison, and exposure to opinions or conflicts amplify stress. The Stoic curates attention, limiting exposure, engaging selectively, and prioritizing meaningful interaction over compulsive engagement. By controlling inputs, the mind is preserved from distraction, envy, and emotional disturbance. Freedom of attention is central to mental health, and deliberate digital boundaries are an essential modern Stoic practice. The modern Stoic also integrates physical discipline into mental health. Exercise, movement, and bodily care are not only beneficial for the body, but profoundly influence the mind. Endorphins, physical stamina, and the discipline required in training cultivate psychological resilience. Enduring temporary discomfort in physical practice parallels the endurance required for emotional and mental challenges. The Stoic trains both body and mind simultaneously, recognizing their interdependence. Physical self-discipline strengthens mental clarity, reduces anxiety, and enhances overall resilience. Sleep and rest are recognized as foundational for mental stability. Modern life often glorifies overwork, multitasking, and continuous productivity, eroding restorative practices. The Stoic prioritizes sufficient, disciplined rest as a necessary condition for reasoned thought, emotional regulation, and effective action. Fatigue undermines judgment and amplifies stress. Restoration strengthens resilience. By honoring the body's need for recuperation, the modern Stoic maintains clarity and fortitude, ensuring that the mind remains prepared to face challenges without succumbing to agitation. Another critical element is community and support, framed through Stoic principles. While Stoicism emphasizes internal mastery, humans are inherently social. Sharing perspectives with trusted individuals, seeking guidance, and offering support are practices that enhance mental health. The Stoic balances engagement with others without surrendering autonomy, cultivating networks of meaningful interaction that reinforce resilience, perspective, and emotional equilibrium. These connections provide both reflection and encouragement, strengthening mental well-being through principled social engagement. Cognitive reframing is another tool. Stress and anxiety often emerge from distorted interpretation of events. The Stoic practices deliberate reassessment. A missed deadline is reframed as a learning opportunity. Criticism is reframed as information, not condemnation. Discomfort is reframed as relationships are the heartbeat of human existence. Even in the modern world, where screens and technology dominate much of our attention, the need for connection remains essential. Yet the very nature of contemporary relationships, accelerated, fragmented, and mediated through devices, presents challenges that test the Stoics' principles daily. Ancient Stoics recognized that humans are social beings, interdependent and interconnected, but they also warned that attachment, dependency, and desire for external approval could destabilize the mind. Modern Stoicism, therefore, requires a delicate balance, deep engagement with others while maintaining sovereignty of the self, empathy without attachment, care without dependency. Consider friendships. In a culture of convenience, instant gratification, and social comparison, friendships are often superficial or transactional. Likes, follows, and shares replace true understanding, and relationships are judged by status or visibility rather than substance. The modern Stoic approaches friendship with intention. He seeks relationships that foster virtue, reflection, and mutual support. He invests attention wisely, offering care, loyalty, and honesty, but does not allow his sense of self or peace to depend on the approval or behavior of others. When friends act unjustly, betray trust, or fail to meet expectations, the Stoic responds with measured reflection, recognizing that he can control his own judgments and actions, but not theirs. He forgives where virtue demands, distances where harm persists, and continues to act with integrity regardless of external response. Romantic relationships present similar challenges. Modern romance is often complicated by immediacy, expectation, and attachment to outcome. Social media amplifies insecurities, misunderstandings, and competition. The Stoic approach is not cold or detached indifference, but deliberate engagement with awareness. He loves fully and sincerely, expresses gratitude, and invests in shared growth, while understanding that affection, loyalty, and happiness in another cannot be commanded or controlled. The Stoic's goal is not to manipulate outcomes, but to act virtuously, to communicate clearly, to serve with integrity, and to cultivate connection without surrendering self-mastery. By detaching from outcomes and focusing on action, the modern Stoic maintains serenity even amidst the inevitable trials of love. Family relationships, too, demand the exercise of Stoic principles. In contemporary life, family bonds are tested by generational differences, conflicting values, and the pressures of modern living. The Stoic recognizes the importance of family as a natural human connection and a training ground for virtue. He practices patience, understanding, and compassionate engagement, yet he maintains clarity regarding what is within his control. He does not attempt to coerce or manipulate, but models virtue through consistent behavior. In this way, family becomes both a source of fulfillment and a field for practicing resilience, self-discipline, and empathy. Even in broader social interactions, Stoicism provides guidance. Modern life is filled with encounters in workplaces, online communities, public spaces, and casual interactions. The modern Stoic approaches each engagement with reason, fairness, and integrity. He listens carefully, speaks deliberately, and acts ethically, regardless of the behavior of others. He does not seek popularity, validation, or influence at the expense of virtue. Social pressures, trends, and cultural expectations are observed, understood, and weighed, but they do not dictate action. Instead, the Stoic allows principle to govern behavior, treating every person as part of the shared human whole, while remaining anchored in reason. Ethical decision-making in modern life is often complicated by ambiguity. Technology, business, politics, and personal ambitions create situations where the correct course is not immediately clear and competing values clash. The Stoic approach is methodical. First, observe the situation carefully. Second, identify what is within control. Third, consider the principles of virtue: justice, courage, wisdom, and temperance, and as guiding tools. And finally, act deliberately, aligning behavior with these virtues rather than short-term gain, emotion, or social expectation. By framing decisions through the lens of virtue, the modern Stoic navigates ethical ambiguity with clarity, confidence, and integrity. Consider the workplace, where ethical dilemmas arise frequently. A colleague takes credit for work, a manager pressures compromise, or corporate policies conflict with personal values. The modern Stoic evaluates each situation, asking, "What is within my control? How can I act justly? What does courage demand? How can I maintain integrity without engaging in harmful conflict?" By responding through reasoned action rather than reactive emotion, the Stoic preserves both self-respect and relational harmony. Ethical living is not passive avoidance of wrongdoing. It is deliberate engagement with the world, guided by principle and tempered by discernment. Modern technology complicates ethics further. Social media amplifies misinformation, facilitates harassment, and presents choices regarding privacy, representation, and communication. The Stoic navigates these challenges by aligning online behavior with the same principles that guide offline life. He avoids reactionary posting, resists the urge to inflame discourse, and considers the consequences of his words and actions. In all spaces, virtual or physical, virtue remains the compass. Integrity is maintained even when the audience is large, unseen, or indifferent. The Stoic is guided not by popularity or approval, but by reasoned principle. Beyond social and professional contexts, Stoicism informs community engagement and civic responsibility. Modern life presents challenges at a societal level: injustice, inequality, environmental crises, and political turmoil. The Stoic approaches these challenges with thoughtful action, focusing on contributions within his power. Advocacy, volunteering, mentorship, and ethical living are avenues through which the Stoic participates in society. He does not waste energy on despair or futile attempts to control forces beyond reach. He acts where impact is possible, influencing through example, reasoned argument, and service. In doing so, the Stoic fulfills his role as a responsible, engaged member of the human community. Relationships and social engagement also benefit from the practice of empathy, tempered by reason. Modern culture often encourages reactive emotion, judgment, and polarization. The Stoic observes without immediate judgment, seeks understanding without surrendering principle, and responds with compassion guided by virtue. By separating emotional impulse from deliberate action, the Stoic fosters connection without compromise of self-mastery. He can engage in difficult conversations, address conflicts, and provide guidance or support, all while maintaining clarity and calm. This balance is essential in the modern world, where emotional turbulence and social polarization are commonplace. Even casual interactions, small talk, professional exchanges, and online discourse become opportunities for practice. The Stoic treats each interaction as a test of virtue, patience, fairness, integrity, and clarity. The seemingly trivial moments of daily life are in fact arenas for character cultivation. By consistently applying principles across all domains, from intimate relationships to public interaction, the modern Stoic strengthens resilience, reinforces ethical clarity, and cultivates habitual virtue. The Stoic also recognizes the importance of self-reflection in relationships. Modern life often encourages projection, blame, and avoidance of personal responsibility. The Stoic, in contrast, continually examines his own actions, attitudes, and judgments. He asks, "How have I contributed to misunderstanding or conflict? How could I act with greater fairness, patience, or wisdom?" This inward reflection, paired with outward engagement, creates a feedback loop of continual growth. Relationships are not only nurtured, but refined. Work is one of the defining arenas of modern life. It is the source of income, identity, social engagement, and purpose. Yet it is also a constant source of stress, distraction, and moral challenge. In contemporary society, the pressure to succeed, to compete, to perform, and to be recognized can overwhelm reason and virtue. The modern Stoic approaches work with intentionality, discipline, and ethical focus, understanding that the measure of a person is not in external accolades or material gain, but in virtue, diligence, and the mastery of self. Central to Stoicism in work is the distinction between effort and outcome. Modern culture often equates success with external achievement, reward, and status. Yet these outcomes are influenced by countless factors beyond personal control: market forces, timing, organizational politics, luck, and the actions of others. The Stoic, therefore, detaches self-worth from results. He acts with diligence, precision, and integrity, investing fully in the process rather than fixating on reward. Effort guided by reason and principle becomes the true measure of success, and external recognition, while appreciated, is never required for inner fulfillment. Productivity is another domain where Stoic principles prove invaluable. Modern life inundates the mind with endless tasks, distractions, and obligations. Multitasking, constant notifications, and an unceasing flow of information fragment focus and erode mental clarity. The Stoic structures work intentionally, prioritizing what is important rather than what is merely urgent. Tasks are approached sequentially, attention is concentrated fully on the matter at hand, and external interruptions are minimized. Productivity is therefore measured not by volume of output alone, but by the quality of attention, the alignment with purpose, and the deliberate application of effort. Ambition, often seen as essential in the modern world, is reframed through Stoicism. Desire for advancement, status, or recognition is natural, but when left unchecked, it becomes a source of anxiety, envy, and distraction. The Stoic cultivates virtuous ambition, a pursuit of excellence, skill, and mastery that is grounded in principle rather than competition. Ambition is exercised through self-improvement, disciplined work, and ethical conduct. Recognition, promotion, or reward may follow, but they are not the primary motivators. Virtue and mastery are the lodestar, and ambition becomes a tool for personal growth rather than a trap for ego. The modern Stoic also addresses stress and conflict in the workplace. Offices, digital environments, and collaborative projects often create tension, misunderstanding, and frustration. Stoicism teaches observation and measured response. Emotional reaction is distinguished from reasoned action. Anger, resentment, and impatience are noted, understood, and redirected. The Stoic navigates professional relationships with integrity, fairness, and patience, recognizing that he controls his own behavior but not the actions of others. In doing so, he preserves peace of mind, strengthens character, and maintains ethical consistency. Time management is central to modern Stoic work practice. The day is finite, yet distractions are endless. Meetings, emails, social obligations, and digital alerts compete for attention. The Stoic prioritizes according to principle. Essential tasks, personal growth, and virtuous action take precedence over trivial demands. Blocks of focused effort are protected. Mindless tasks are minimized. Deliberate planning, reflection, and organization transform time from a source of stress into a tool for mastery and accomplishment. By controlling attention,
the Stoic exerts sovereignty over productivity and navigates the modern work environment with efficiency and composure. Failure and setbacks, inevitable in contemporary work, are reframed as opportunities for growth. A failed project, a rejected proposal, or criticism from colleagues is not a reflection of personal inadequacy, but a source of feedback and learning. The Stoic analyzes mistakes objectively, extracts lessons, and adapts future actions. Resilience is cultivated through repeated exposure to difficulty, reflection, and intentional improvement. In this manner, failure becomes a teacher rather than a threat, and ambition is guided by reason rather than fear. Ethics in work is non-negotiable for the modern Stoic. Temptations to cut corners, manipulate outcomes, or compromise principle may arise, yet virtue is the defining measure of success. Justice, honesty, and integrity guide action even in competitive, high-pressure environments. The Stoic recognizes that reputational or material gain is fleeting, but ethical consistency endures. Decisions are made by evaluating whether actions align with reason and virtue rather than with immediate advantage. In this way, the Stoic navigates professional life with honor, resilience, and dignity. Collaboration and leadership present unique challenges. Modern workplaces are social ecosystems, and leadership often requires balancing empathy, accountability, and vision. The Stoic leader acts with calm authority, reasoned judgment, and ethical clarity. He does not seek control over others, but influence through example, guidance, and principled action. Conflict is addressed with patience and fairness. Success is pursued through collective effort rather than coercion. In this way, leadership becomes an exercise in virtue, reflection, and strategic action. Ambition is further refined through self-knowledge and realistic assessment. Modern culture encourages overreach, comparison, and constant striving for status, often leading to burnout and anxiety. The Stoic evaluates personal strengths, weaknesses, and capacity with honesty. Goals are ambitious yet achievable, aligned with principle and purpose. Effort is maximized within realistic bounds, and failure is reframed as feedback. By cultivating self-awareness, the Stoic avoids destructive competition and channels ambition into constructive, disciplined, and purposeful action. Continuous learning is integral to modern Stoic work practice. Skills, knowledge, and adaptability are pursued intentionally, not for superficial recognition, but as tools for effective action and ethical contribution. The Stoic approaches every project, challenge, or problem as an opportunity to grow in competence, resilience, and wisdom. Learning is iterative, deliberate, and grounded in reflection. Each day of work becomes a training ground for excellence, character, and mastery, turning even routine labor into a field for personal and ethical development. The Stoic also integrates balance between work and life. Modern ambition often leads to overwork, exhaustion, and neglect of personal growth or relationships. The Stoic recognizes that excellence in work cannot come at the expense of virtue, health, or meaningful connection. Time is allocated deliberately for reflection, exercise, relationships, and rest. Work is performed with intensity and focus, but life outside work is treated as equally important. Balance ensures that productivity does not become obsession, and ambition does not erode serenity or ethical consistency. Stress reduction in work is further achieved by reframing control. External outcomes, recognition, and the actions of colleagues are acknowledged as beyond absolute control. Anxiety over promotion, client reactions, or corporate politics is mitigated by focusing on personal effort, quality, and virtue. By distinguishing controllable action from uncontrollable consequence, the mind remains steady, resilient,
and capable of deliberate action without reactive panic. The Stoic understands that inner freedom is preserved by attention to effort and principle, not by attachment to unpredictable results. Even in high-pressure, competitive environments, the Stoic maintains equanimity. Deadlines, performance metrics, and external evaluation are treated as circumstances, not determinants of worth. Focus remains on integrity, diligence, and consistent action. Stress is acknowledged, analyzed, and mitigated through reflection, preparation, and rational response. By mastering the mind amidst external pressure, the modern Stoic thrives in work without succumbing to anxiety, fear, or impulsive reaction. Mentorship, guidance, and ethical influence are also aspects of modern Stoic practice. Those with experience,
Stoicism, when fully embraced, is not merely a philosophy, but a way of life. It is a comprehensive guide for navigating the complexities, pressures, and distractions of the modern world, integrating mind, body, emotion, and action into a coherent practice of virtue, reason, and resilience. In the final analysis, modern Stoicism is about harmonizing internal mastery with external reality, achieving freedom from compulsion, and cultivating a life of deliberate intention, ethical consistency, and sustained serenity. The first principle of holistic modern Stoicism is self-knowledge. Without understanding one's own strengths, weaknesses, desires, and tendencies, no deliberate practice is possible. Self-knowledge is cultivated through reflection, journaling, meditation, and observation of habitual thought and behavior. Each day, the modern Stoic examines the mind. What emotions arise? What impulses dominate? Where does attention wander? By cultivating honest self-awareness, the Stoic identifies patterns, adjusts behavior, and strengthens the foundation of deliberate action. Self-knowledge is both compass and anchor, guiding decisions, moderating desire, and revealing opportunities for growth. The second principle is alignment with virtue. Virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance is the ultimate goal. Every thought, action, and decision is measured against these standards. Modern life presents innumerable temptations to compromise principle for comfort, recognition, or convenience. The Stoic resists these pressures, acting ethically even when difficult, even when unseen, and even when costly. In this way, virtue becomes a constant metric and the true source of fulfillment. External success, recognition, and reward are neither required nor assumed. They are indifferent, secondary to ethical living. The third principle is control over judgment and perception. Modern life overwhelms the senses with input, opinion, and expectation. The Stoic trains the mind to evaluate objectively. Events are seen as they are, not as they are imagined or feared. Frustration, anger, and anxiety are minimized by recognizing the true nature of external events, neutral in themselves, their significance defined by the mind. By controlling judgment, the Stoic maintains serenity regardless of circumstance, cultivating clarity, resilience, and reasoned response even amidst uncertainty or chaos. The fourth principle is deliberate engagement with daily life. Every moment, waking, working, resting, interacting, is an opportunity for practice. Stoicism is not only for crises, it is for ordinary existence. Morning rituals of reflection, journaling, meditation, or exercise set the tone. Work is approached with diligence, focus, and ethical integrity. Challenges are met with courage,
patience, and reasoned response. Relationships are navigated with empathy, justice, and moderation. Even leisure is approached intentionally, balancing pleasure with discipline. Life becomes a canvas upon which virtue, focus, and deliberate action are exercised continuously. The fifth principle is discipline of desire and impulse. Modern life inundates the mind with temptation, wealth, status, entertainment, indulgence, and distraction. The Stoic exercises restraint, moderation, and awareness, cultivating freedom from compulsion. Desire is observed, assessed, and directed toward what serves purpose and virtue rather than fleeting pleasure. Resisting excess and practicing intentional limitation strengthens the mind, enhances clarity, and reduces anxiety. Through this discipline, external conditions cease to dictate inner peace. The sixth principle is resilience through adversity. Modern life is unpredictable, and setbacks, challenges, and discomfort are inevitable. The Stoic embraces adversity as a teacher, practicing endurance, patience, and reflection. Physical training, voluntary discomfort, and exposure to difficulty cultivate strength. Failure, loss, and criticism are reframed as feedback rather than catastrophe. Mental and emotional resilience are strengthened by rehearsal, reflection, and disciplined action. In this way, the modern Stoic remains steady, capable of acting with reason and unshaken by the vicissitudes of life. The seventh principle is integration of technology and modern tools. Digital devices, social media, and information streams can distract or empower, depending on engagement. The Stoic approaches technology with deliberate attention, ethical awareness, and boundaries. Distraction is minimized, meaningful engagement prioritized, and emotional reactivity moderated. Social comparison is tempered, attention protected, and knowledge selectively acquired. Technology becomes an instrument of growth, connection, and ethical action, rather than a source of agitation or compulsion. The eighth principle is focus on effort rather than outcome. Modern culture emphasizes external success, achievement, recognition, and reward. The Stoic recognizes that outcomes are influenced by many factors beyond control. Effort, diligence, integrity, and intention are fully within control and are the proper measure of personal excellence. By dedicating attention to process rather than result, the modern Stoic cultivates mastery, ethical consistency, and psychological resilience. Success becomes internal and enduring, rather than dependent on external validation or fortune. The ninth principle is continuous learning and self-improvement. Modern life offers unprecedented access to knowledge, skill, and insight. The Stoic pursues learning deliberately, evaluating information critically, and integrating wisdom into daily action. Every project, challenge, and interaction is an opportunity to grow in competence, ethical understanding, and emotional intelligence. Knowledge is pursued not for status, but for capability, ethical action, and personal mastery. Growth is iterative, reflective, and applied, ensuring that learning strengthens both mind and character. The 10th principle is gratitude, perspective, and sufficiency. Despite abundance or scarcity, the Stoic maintains appreciation for life as it is. Gratitude for health, relationships, opportunity, and capacity anchors contentment. Perspective on impermanence, human limitation, and the transient nature of events reduces anxiety and envy. Sufficiency, recognition of what is enough, cultivates freedom from compulsion and desire. Gratitude transforms experience, turning ordinary moments into opportunities for reflection, ethical action, and joy rooted in virtue rather than external acquisition. Integration of these principles is a continuous, dynamic practice. Stoicism is not theoretical, it is lived. Every day offers moments for reflection, action, correction, and growth. Morning rituals anchor the mind. Work becomes a site of virtue and mastery. Technology and social media are harnessed deliberately. Distraction, anxiety, desire, and adversity are recognized, assessed, and addressed with reasoned response. Life is navigated with courage, clarity, and ethical purpose. Modern challenges, technology, work, social pressure, wealth, and information overload are transformed into opportunities for mastery rather than sources of agitation. The Stoic is free, not because circumstances are ideal, but because mastery of self and reasoned action create unshakable resilience and enduring serenity. In summary, Stoicism as a holistic guide to modern life integrates self-knowledge, virtue, judgment, deliberate action, discipline of desire, resilience, ethical technology use, focus on effort, continuous learning, and gratitude. These principles guide thought, action, and emotion, transforming the complexity, distraction, and challenge of contemporary existence into a coherent practice of freedom, mastery, and ethical living. Modern Stoicism is not an abstraction, but a lived methodology. Every day is an opportunity to exercise virtue, strengthen character.
Wealth, possessions, and material desire are among the most potent forces in the modern world. Society equates money with success, status with happiness, and consumption with fulfillment. Billboards, advertisements, social media, and popular culture constantly reinforce the illusion that acquiring more will bring peace, contentment, or meaning. Yet the Stoic recognizes that these external goods are neither inherently good nor evil. They are indifferent, neutral in value. What matters is not how much one possesses, but how one uses what one has, how one relates to it, and whether desire for external goods governs the mind. The modern Stoic approaches wealth with clarity and restraint. Money is a tool, not a measure of self-worth. Possessions serve purposes, enable action, and provide comfort, but they are not the foundation of virtue or happiness. Excessive attachment, indulgence, or dependence on material goods undermines freedom, fosters anxiety, and weakens character. The Stoic maintains control over desire, cultivating contentment with what is necessary and avoiding the endless pursuit of superfluous acquisitions. By distinguishing between needs and wants, between utility and indulgence, the mind is liberated from compulsive consumption. Consumerism in modern society is engineered for distraction and dissatisfaction. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another emerges. Marketing, social comparison, and cultural pressure manipulate perception, creating an illusion of scarcity and perpetual need. The Stoic resists this cycle, practicing deliberate evaluation of wants. He asks, does this purchase serve a purpose? Does it support virtue or habit? Does it cultivate freedom or dependency? By questioning impulses before acting, the modern Stoic converts desire into deliberate choice, preventing external forces from dictating behavior or disturbing peace of mind. Luxury and abundance are not rejected outright by the Stoic, but they are approached with mindful detachment. One may enjoy comfort, aesthetic beauty, or convenience without surrendering sovereignty to them. Pleasure is accepted, but it is neither pursued blindly nor allowed to dominate attention. The Stoic's joy is not rooted in acquisition, but in the ability to act rightly, to exercise wisdom, and to live in alignment with principle. Material goods are valued instrumentally, not existentially. They serve life, not define it. Debt, financial pressure, and economic instability are among the modern sources of stress and distraction. The Stoic responds with prudence, discipline, and acceptance. He plans carefully, avoids reckless spending, and cultivates self-reliance. Yet he does not succumb to anxiety over what cannot be fully controlled. External financial fluctuations, market crashes, or economic downturns are recognized as beyond absolute control. But within this recognition lies freedom. The Stoic maintains a mindset of sufficiency, a readiness to endure discomfort, adapt to circumstances, and act wisely within the sphere of influence. By managing resources responsibly while accepting uncertainty, financial life becomes a domain for practice rather than a source of perpetual worry. The Stoic also addresses the temptation of envy, comparison, and status-seeking. In the modern world, social media amplifies the perception of others' success and wealth, provoking insecurity and dissatisfaction. The Stoic observes these reactions without attachment, recognizing that the achievements of others do not diminish his own worth or freedom. Comparison is reframed. One evaluates personal growth, character, and virtue, rather than external appearance or social recognition. By focusing on internal development rather than external validation, the mind is protected from the corrosive effects of envy and social competition. Generosity, however, is central to the Stoic approach to wealth. Possessions are not hoarded selfishly. They are instruments for virtue. Charity, assistance, and service to others are expressions of wisdom and justice. Wealth, when applied through reason and principle, becomes a tool to cultivate both personal virtue and societal benefit. The Stoic gives not for recognition or ego, but because it is right and effective. In this way, resources are transformed from potential sources of attachment or anxiety into instruments of ethical living. Material scarcity, too, is addressed with Stoic insight. Modern life often fosters fear of loss, insufficient resources, emergencies, or deprivation. The Stoic trains the mind to endure discomfort, practice simplicity, and embrace sufficiency. This does not mean rejecting all comfort or convenience, but recognizing that external scarcity cannot disturb the peace of a mind rooted in virtue. Resilience arises from preparation, adaptability, and acceptance rather than accumulation. By training to thrive with less, the Stoic achieves freedom from compulsion and the capacity to act with clarity in both abundance and need. The modern Stoic also practices voluntary restraint, intentionally limiting consumption, pleasure, or indulgence. This is not punishment, but cultivation of mastery over desire. Fasting, minimalist living, selective purchasing, and intentional limitation of luxury are exercises in freedom. By confronting and moderating desire, the mind becomes stronger, less dependent on external conditions, and more capable of sustained focus on meaningful pursuits. These practices develop internal wealth, resilience, discipline, and clarity, far surpassing the transient satisfaction of external acquisition. Investment in knowledge, skills, and personal growth is considered superior to investment in material accumulation. The Stoic values education, self-discipline, and moral development as the highest forms of wealth. Unlike possessions, these cannot be stolen, lost, or devalued.
They serve as enduring resources for navigating life, improving character, and contributing to society. In this way, modern Stoicism prioritizes growth that transcends material condition, anchoring fulfillment in competence, reason, and virtue, rather than in transient goods. Modern society often equates success with consumption, luxury, and social status. The Stoic reframes this perception, recognizing that external markers of success are fragile, impermanent, and often irrelevant to true well-being. Fulfillment derives from internal mastery, ethical action, and alignment with principle. The Stoic measures success not in bank balances, possessions, or social recognition, but in character, wisdom, courage, and virtue. External goods are secondary, valued instrumentally rather than existentially. In this way, the pursuit of material wealth is harmonized with the cultivation of inner freedom. The temptation of excess extends beyond money into digital consumption, entertainment, and pleasure. Modern Stoicism applies the same principle: deliberate moderation, intentional engagement, and prioritization of value. Just as one refrains from overindulgence in food or luxury, the Stoic limits exposure to entertainment, social media, and mindless distraction. These modern indulgences, if uncontrolled, replicate the same effects as excessive wealth. They fragment attention, inflate desire, and erode internal freedom. Through restraint and awareness, the mind remains focused, disciplined, and aligned with purpose. Gratitude is another critical element in managing desire and wealth. Modern life encourages dissatisfaction, comparison, and longing, yet the Stoic cultivates appreciation for what is present. Gratitude is expressed for sufficient resources, health, relationships, and opportunity. This awareness of sufficiency counteracts greed, envy, and obsession with acquisition. Gratitude transforms material engagement from a source of anxiety into a practice of virtue and mindfulness. The Stoic also recognizes that the value of material goods is derived entirely from their use. Possessions are neutral. They are neither inherently good nor bad. Misuse, overvaluation, or attachment creates.
Technology is the defining feature of modern existence. It has reshaped communication, knowledge, work, and leisure, offering unprecedented convenience and opportunity. Yet alongside these advantages, technology brings new challenges: constant distraction, endless connectivity, social comparison, misinformation, and fragmented attention. Social media, instant messaging, and digital feeds create a sense of urgency and obligation, conditioning the mind toward reaction rather than reflection. The modern Stoic navigates this terrain with deliberate mindfulness, ethical awareness, and disciplined engagement, transforming technology from a potential source of chaos into a tool for reasoned living. At the heart of Stoicism in the digital age is control over attention. Modern devices are designed to capture focus, exploit desire, and provoke emotional reaction. Every notification, like, or alert tempts the mind to abandon deliberate action for immediate gratification. The Stoic, aware of this dynamic, cultivates mastery over attention. He decides consciously where to direct focus, when to engage, and when to disconnect. By establishing boundaries, he prevents external stimuli from dictating mental state, preserving clarity, serenity, and intentionality in every interaction. Attention, once surrendered, is easily lost. Disciplined management transforms it into a source of freedom and power.
Social media introduces a profound challenge: comparison and envy. Platforms amplify curated lives, successes, and achievements of others, creating a distorted sense of inadequacy. The Stoic observes these reactions without attachment. Comparison is reframed. One evaluates growth against one's own values and progress rather than external displays. Gratitude for personal sufficiency and perspective on the impermanence of appearances diminish envy. The Stoic recognizes that social media presents illusions, not reality, and that true contentment is rooted in virtue and self-mastery, not in approval, likes, or recognition. Information overload is another defining challenge of the digital era. News, alerts, emails, podcasts, and online content arrive incessantly, fragmenting attention and overwhelming judgment. The Stoic approaches information with discernment and purpose. Not all knowledge is valuable, and not all engagement is necessary. He prioritizes what informs reason, virtue, or action, while filtering out trivial, misleading, or emotionally manipulative content. Digital consumption is treated as a tool, not a compulsion. By controlling input, the mind avoids mental clutter, reduces anxiety, and retains clarity for meaningful reflection and action. The Stoic also applies ethical discernment to technology. Online interaction can amplify conflict, hasten impulsive reactions, and obscure moral responsibility. The modern Stoic engages with reasoned intent. Speech is deliberate, sharing is purposeful, and judgment is measured. Online disagreement is approached with patience, empathy, and principled argument rather than emotional reactivity. By extending Stoic ethics into digital engagement, the modern individual navigates social platforms without succumbing to agitation, distortion, or moral compromise. Digital distraction undermines productivity, presence, and focus. The Stoic practices deliberate limitation, turning off notifications, scheduling focused work blocks, curating feeds, and resisting compulsive scrolling. Even brief, habitual interruptions fragment attention and erode discipline. By consciously controlling exposure, the mind preserves cognitive resources for deliberate thought, creative problem-solving, and virtuous action. Technology in this sense is neither rejected nor indulged indiscriminately. It is harnessed to serve purpose rather than dictate behavior. Online conflict, trolling, and negativity are pervasive. The Stoic responds not with reactive emotion, but measured reflection. Provocation, insult, or disagreement is acknowledged, analyzed, and addressed only when reasoned response aligns with virtue. Emotional arousal is not the driver of action. Silence, measured speech, or principled engagement becomes the practice of mental sovereignty. By exercising restraint and reflection, the Stoic avoids unnecessary agitation and transforms potentially destructive encounters into opportunities for discipline and ethical demonstration. Time management in the digital era requires deliberate boundaries. Modern devices create an illusion of urgency, suggesting that immediate engagement is required. The Stoic evaluates each interaction through the lens of principle. Is this meaningful, necessary, or virtuous? Superfluous engagement is deferred or avoided. Time is reclaimed from distraction. Fragmented attention is restored, and deliberate presence becomes possible. Digital tools, once mastered, can support learning, communication, and work, rather than fragment focus and undermine clarity. The Stoic also practices negative visualization regarding technology.
The mind is prepared for connectivity failures, misinformation, or the ephemeral nature of digital attention. Anticipating these disruptions prevents over-attachment, frustration, or despair when digital outcomes diverge from expectation. The same principle applies to social media reputation, influence, or engagement. External perception is acknowledged, but not granted power over inner peace. Social media often encourages superficiality and identity distortion. People perform for an audience, curating personas that emphasize approval rather than authenticity. The modern Stoic maintains internal consistency and authenticity, refusing to surrender self-mastery to external validation. Posts, comments, and public interaction reflect reason, virtue, and integrity, rather than impulsive reaction or desire for praise. The mind is grounded in principle, not in the fluctuating approval of others. In this way, the Stoic maintains autonomy and ethical clarity in an environment designed to provoke distraction and attachment. Education and learning are reshaped in the digital age, and the Stoic applies discernment to knowledge acquisition. Endless information is available, but discernment is critical. Which sources are accurate, useful, and aligned with growth? Not all engagement contributes to wisdom. The Stoic selectively consumes content that strengthens understanding, skill, and ethical insight, filtering noise and avoiding mental saturation. Knowledge is cultivated intentionally, with reflection and integration, rather than passively accumulated or superficially consumed. Modern life also presents the challenge of instant gratification through technology. Streaming, social media, online shopping, and digital entertainment condition the mind to expect immediate reward. The Stoic counters this with deliberate moderation. Delayed gratification, focus on process rather than outcome, and intentional restraint cultivate patience, self-discipline, and freedom from compulsion. Pleasure, entertainment, and convenience are accepted, but only when engaged with mindfully and without surrender of autonomy. In this way, the Stoic preserves inner stability amidst the seductive ease of the digital world. The modern Stoic also cultivates digital detox and reflection. Periodic disengagement from technology restores clarity, enhances creativity, and allows space for introspection. Silence, solitude, and contemplative activity counteract the overstimulation endemic to digital life. Journaling, reading, meditation, or physical activity in offline space reinforces self-mastery, strengthens focus, and cultivates serenity. Technology is thus balanced with deliberate periods of presence, reflection, and interrupted thought. Ethical engagement extends to the use of personal data, online conduct, and participation in virtual communities. The Stoic recognizes that digital actions have consequences for oneself and others. Sharing information, commenting, and online influence are exercised with awareness, responsibility, and reflection. Harm is minimized,